Hi, my name is Craig Covey. I'm an insurance agent here in Texas, and today I'd like to share with you information about the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage part of your auto insurance policy. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, but I do encourage you to pull out your current declaration pages and follow along, or once you've learned what I've shared with you here, to go and take a look at them and provide yourself a comparison to see and make sure that you've got the right coverage for you. If you're not sure, or if you have questions, you want me to look at them with you, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I've got my contact information here above. But if you miss it here, don't worry, I'll put it back up here at the end and would love to have a conversation with you. So let's dive in and take a closer look. So here's a sample of an auto declaration page in which I have provided no coverage for the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. So the liability to others at $100,000 per person, $300,000 for the accident. That's the part of the policy that protects you in the event that you are at fault in an accident, that you've hit someone else and you have caused bodily injury to someone else. And it provides a maximum coverage up to $100,000 per person. In this example, $300,000 total for the accident in case there are multiple participants in the accident. But what we're talking about today is the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. So this part of the policy takes care of you in the event that somebody else has hit you, that they are at fault, and their insurance is to provide you coverage. So here you can see that I am showing an example of rejected coverage. So in the event that somebody else has hit you and their insurance provider either is maxed out on their coverage and you have more injuries than what their coverage provides, or they don't have coverage. They could be the nicest people in the world, but they forgot to pay their bill last week and they don't have coverage at the time that they hit you, or they're with the carrier that is dragging their feet in getting you taken care of, or is now starting to assign a percentage. The things I'm starting to see more often these days are carriers are dragging their feet in taking care of our clients when their party's at fault, or they're trying to assign a percentage of the accident to you. So then you turn to your carrier to look for coverage to help get you taken care of, and that part of the policy falls to the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. In this example, there's no coverage. So you would turn to your carrier and they would not be able to help you at all. Their hands are tied. They can't do anything to help you. So you're kind of left on your own to be able to fend for yourself in working with the other carrier. And now you're dealing with all that stress and any frustration or aggravation and delays to get taken care of. This is not the preferred coverage. Also, I've seen this a couple times because I've seen where agents have proposed or the insured has said that their health insurance will take care of them, which it looks like possibly as part of the Affordable Care Act, when that passed, that it proposed or made the health insurance providers the primary even when you're involved in an auto accident. So check your health insurance provider if that's the case. But I don't want that to be the end-all be-all, because what you would be leaving off the table there is coverage for pain and suffering. So even if your health insurance provider would provide you coverage, which I've had people bring that up to me, is why they're rejecting coverage, but then you don't have any opportunity to get a settlement for pain and suffering. So that's an important part. So here in this example, you can see the bodily injury to others is $250,000 per person, $500,000 for the accident. But then the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage is using the Texas state minimums, $30,000 per person, $60,000 for the accident. And I'm starting to see this quite often these days. In fact, I'm going to share with you an example for a family that I was quoting today of a copy of their current declaration pages. And I often ask and encourage them to send me their current declaration pages so I can look at them with them. Because what I do a video to show a side-by-side comparison. Here, I'll put up an example. I do a side-by-side comparison using their current declaration pages alongside the quote that I'm put together for them so that I can show them very transparently that I'm doing the same coverage or proposing better coverage than what they currently have. In this example, you're going to see of the current declaration pages, they've got the state minimums for the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. So I'm recommending for them to go back to their current carrier to get the limits to match what they currently have for bodily injury to others, because that's how I'm quoting for them so that they can have an actual fair comparison, because they're about to add a teenage driver. And so those are parts of the discussion that come into play. So in this example here, you can see the state minimums. Again, not having the right limits of liability coverage. So what I always propose, you should see matching coverages. So whatever limits of coverage you have for bodily injury to others, you should have that matching coverage for the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. I always try and encourage the higher limits of coverage because if you're my client, you're very important to me. And I want to be able to provide you the best coverage that you can get. Because the uninsured, underinsured, again, the higher likelihood is that somebody else is going to hit you before you hit somebody else. And in order for me to get those higher limits of the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, we have to have the higher limits of the bodily injury. We cannot have the uninsured, underinsured coverage be higher than the bodily injury. The best it can do is match what you have for the bodily injury. So that's where I encourage for the higher limits. And once you have insurance, it's not that much more to go up in these coverage limits, which will be a hint that I will propose when I do the video about how to shop for your insurance. So this is an important part of that, looking at the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. And I will bring this up again in the video that I do about how to shop for insurance. So stay tuned for that. So this is the type of value that I like to look. And here's an example why. I had a client with a teenage driver, and she was 17 years old at the time. And she was coming down a main farm to market road in our area, and who turned out to be a friend of a friend. He was pulling out of a gas station and making a left-hand turn. So he's pulling out across both lanes, and he pulled out in front of her. She could not stop in time, slams on the brakes, and impacts, T-bones him. She ends up breaking her thigh bone, gets a metal rod permanently installed in her thigh, and her medical bills alone were $118,000. His coverage for his family, they had $100,000 per person, $300,000 for the accident. So in her example, it was just her in the vehicle, so the $100,000 coverage comes into play. So his insurance paid out the $100,000. They maxed their limits. So that's their responsibility. That was it. They were done. So we filed a claim through her uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage because he didn't have enough coverage. They were underinsured. So we paid the balance of that medical bill, $18,000. And then we have pain and suffering. Well, there's no set limit about what the pain and suffering should be for somebody who gets a metal rod permanently installed in their leg as a 17-year-old. But how much would you want? If that was you, if that was your teenager, how much would you want for them? As much as you can get, I'm sure, is the answer that you're thinking about in your head right now, which would be my answer too. Well, we settled out paying for pain and suffering for my insured $92,000. So in total, $18,000 for the medical bills, $92,000 for pain and suffering. We paid out $110,000. So if you go back and think about those other examples I showed you, rejected coverage, I would have left your policy, if you had rejected coverage, you would have been left with the balance of the $18,000, which your health insurance carrier may or may not have paid, and pain and suffering, $92,000. So you could have potentially left that on the table as well with rejected coverage. Looking at the state minimums, that next example, $30,000 comes into play, paying out the balance of $18,000 for the medical bills, and then only limiting yourself to $12,000 for pain and suffering. Again, leaving $80,000 on the table. For my client, in that example, we had this limit of coverage here. This was an example of their policy, $250,000. So we didn't max out the policy, but we had plenty of coverage there to be able to pay above and beyond whatever that settlement was without issue. Made my client very happy. She was about to go off to Baylor and was going to be a linguist. And she was going to join the ROTC to help pay for college. And because of her accident, she was not able to do the physical part of the program, and therefore did not get into the ROTC program. She missed her window for that. So this pain and suffering settlement helped to pay for her college. A very proud moment for her family. So very important. So here's an example of somebody I'm quoting today. Very nice family. They're about to add a teenage driver, and so they're working with their carrier and called me to give me an opportunity to quote them and see what I can do to help them out in preparation for them adding their teenage boy driver. Well, here they are with their current declaration pages that they shared with me. And so I went on to explain to them what the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage is and what it means to them and how important it is to be able to add it for their teenage driver. I shared with them that example that I just shared with you about my teenage driver client, and what this means for them. For her and for him, the inexperienced drivers, adding a youthful driver, they're inexperienced, but they're going to be driving in areas with other inexperienced drivers. So a high likelihood of them being involved in an accident with another youthful driver is very high. And being injured in that accident because of how these circumstances can come about. And so how important it is to have the higher limits of coverage. So you can see they've got very good limits of liability coverage to protect their retirement plans, to protect their wallet, which I often kid when you have a teenage driver. You're not just throwing them the keys, you're throwing them your wallet and your retirement plans. So I bring that up when I'm talking to them about it. And you can see here, I didn't reference it before, but I often discuss what I call the load and the premium. The breakdown of your premium, what you're paying, and you'll see that here if you pulled out your declaration pages. The load and the premium is the liability to others and your collision deductible. With them, they've got a very good policy here. It's just the husband and wife right now on the policy, but we're about to add a teenage driver. So that collision deductible is going to go up because we're adding a greater risk, a youthful male driver. They're the higher likelihood of having an accident. The liability is going to go up. But this uninsured, underinsured, sure, it's going to go up a little bit, but in relation to the others, not as much. So the recommendation is for them to get their ducks in a row and to get something that's a fair comparison, because I'm not going to quote these state minimums for the uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. It doesn't make sense for them to have that, and they agree. So they're getting an updated quote from their current carrier, and they're going to have then that comparison for what I'm going to propose for them. And I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison video here, further explaining how it compares and what to look at, so that we can continue that conversation. So that's it. I hope this makes sense for you. I hope I provided you some value to help you make sure that your insurance dollar is working as hard as it can for you. That's always the goal, to get value out of your insurance dollar. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, if you'd like me to review your current policies, I'm more than happy to do that, or do quotes for you. Whatever I can do to help you out to make sure that your insurance dollar is working hard for you. Here's my phone number and email address here above. Would love to have a conversation with you. Whatever I can do to help you out. Until next time, keep an eye out for other videos. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.